Hi, everybody. Oh, sorry if I'm loud. So I'm Lucy. I am a first aid trainer and a first aid for mental health trainer at Ridgeway Training down in Sussex. And I've been there for 4 years. I am not from the transport industry, so I was cabin crew for 14 years. And it's a really amazing job. So the reason I got into training is because 5 years ago, my mum went into sudden cardiac arrest. I did CPR on her. She's fine. I saved her life. She's okay. She's got my kids at the minute. So that's my background. 4 years ago, I was at home and I got a call from Chris from Ridgeway Training. And he had recognised in the transport industry that mental health was a bit of a problem, and he wanted me to deliver first aid training and first aid for mental health. So I was like, yeah, absolutely. Has anybody attended a mental health course, first aid for mental health? Well, there's quite a few of you. So part of these courses, I rely a lot on engagement. And when Chris was asking me, like, can you deliver to these drivers, I was like, are you sure they're actually going to chat to me? And I was really worried that they was like, this is going to be such a hard gig to do. Drivers love to chat. Oh my God, I can't shut them up. So they'll come in and I was like, they're not going to say anything. They're not going to open up. And they come in and it's actually, I feel very privileged as a trainer that I get to sit and I listen to drivers every single month. And because I'm not from your industry, it's actually really heartbreaking how hard it is as a job. So obviously there's a lot of, for these guys, there's lots of external factors that I actually can't really deal with. Like, I've got at least one guy in every session will come to me and say they've been subject to domestic abuse, domestic violence, which is something that we don't really hear, especially coming from men. I get a lot of guys that are having problems with their children and they've had to move in, divorce rates. So I am a trainer, but I am kind of like a counsellor as well. At the end of the day, I give them a cuddle and I listen to them and I give them the space just to talk and get it off their chest. And I think that's really important. Sorry, I am a little bit nervous. I was like, yeah, I'll come and do this chat. And I walked in the room, I was like, blimey, there's loads of you. So bear with me. The nerves will go. So my first lesson that I taught for Ridgeway Training, it was a group of drivers in London. And I was sat there and I think, God, this is going to be really hard to deliver. And then this one guy was like, yeah, actually, year previous, I tried to take my own life. I went to the shed, I got the rope. And I couldn't believe how vulnerable this guy was being, this driver. My second lesson, I had a lovely guy called Dave. And he was like, 3 months prior, I have tried to take my own life. I went to the car, I got the hose and I tried to take my own life. Because Dave was so vulnerable in that lesson, I then had 2 other guys open up. So 3 guys from that second lesson. My third lesson, I had another guy. I'm like, I have taught 3 sessions now, and I've had 5 guys try and tell me that they've tried to take their own life. I was livid. So then I'm going back into the office. I'm like, why I've got so many guys attempting to take their own life? And it's heartbreaking for me as a trainer because I'm not from your industry. I didn't know who to contact, and I've been trying to make noise, but I didn't feel like I was getting anywhere. So when Beverly was like, would you like to come and chat? I was like, yeah, absolutely. And then I was like, oh God, there's lots of people here. So I want to try and make change. And when, after, I had those 5 people in my 3 lessons, I started to do like a bit of a deeper dive into why the guys are struggling so much, and why, not the guys, the drivers are struggling so much. So I went on the Office for National Statistics, and I had a look at the suicide rates by occupation. So construction, that industry has changed massively. So we've got mental health first aiders, we've got mates in mind. There's a lot more in place for that. So the three highest, if you look at by the suicide rates by occupation, we've got construction, road transport and agriculture. Teaching drivers CPC, they're the three main industries that I get. We've got more people that are helping the construction industry, but why haven't we got more people helping transport? Why is there not more things in place? Can I ask, if you were worried about one of your drivers, hands up, would you ask them, obviously not just going to jump in and ask them this question, you're going to build up to it, but how many of you would say to one of your employees, have you thought about taking your own life? Can I just have a show of hands if you would be that direct with somebody? Yeah, that's quite a tough question. I want a show of hands. How many people think that you would be planting the seed in somebody's head by asking that question? Yeah. You're never ever going to plant your that thought into somebody's mind. And it's such an important question because I hear a lot of people going, yeah, I would ask that question, but I would ask in my own way. With mental health, it needs to be black and white. So I need you to go, obviously, as I said, don't go straight up and go, have you thought about taking your own life? Like, build up to that. I want you to work up to that conversation and ask them, have you thought about taking your own life? When was the last time? And because we don't want any grey areas. And that's the point of, having mental health first aiders in the workplace. It's giving you the tools to ask the right questions, giving you the tools to ask your drivers. Because these drivers are amazing. I teach schools, I teach everybody. I love teaching my drivers. We always have such a laugh. But we need to look after them. We need to give them the respect and the spaces to open up. So because I took a deeper dive into why drivers are struggling, I looked at my lessons. So where I was teaching generic first aid for mental health, I've tailored it now. So I give them a sheet of paper, big whiteboard sheet thing, and one will say, tell me what you think is contributing to poor mental health in transport and what we could do to change that. So all my drivers write down what they think is contributing. So long working hours. I would love to know the divorce rates for transport because I think a lot of you are divorced. Because you don't have that good work-life balance. One of the other things is exposure to trauma. So you know those suicide rates that I showed you before? So actually, when you look at protective services, transport, construction and agriculture have a much higher suicide rate than the protective services. What do you think the difference? Because obviously, you're exposed to so much trauma as police officers, as military. What is the difference, do you think, between those protective services to our transport drivers? Pardon? Support, yeah. So you guys, I think when I teach anyone from ex-military, police, they're like, oh, you're from this regiment, and they'll have a nice chat with each other. Whereas my drivers, they've got all of those external pressures on. They're getting in their vehicles, they're on their own. They drop their keys off to their manager and they're on their own. They haven't got that support network like the protective services. So one of my drivers, Sean, who's a tipper driver, like these guys have kind of stole all my chat, so I'm trying to diversify. So one of my drivers, my tipper drivers, he was driving around a roundabout, stopped at the lights, and then he was moving. And then a car came up and smashed into the side of his car, side of the lorry, sorry. Everyone was getting out of their vehicles and abusing the driver. The newspaper did an article and they were saying local tipper drivers caused an accident, blah, blah, blah. It all went to court, and it turned out that this guy was a fireman and he was attempting to take his own life by driving into the HGV lorry. But until that moment, everybody was thought that it was Sean's fault, which is a lot of pressure on him. So that was contributing to, his poor mental health. One of the other things that is where would you say drivers would place themselves in society? Because this is one of the questions that I ask. Would you say they were in the top, middle, or bottom? Where would you say drivers would place themselves? Yeah, lowest of the low. That's what they always tell me. We're the lowest of the low. Honestly, I have cried in my lessons because I'm like, this is so heartbreaking for me. Because this country can't run without our drivers. They're so important. We need to make our drivers feel valued again. We need to give them that respect. What else? So the abuse from the public. This is one of the things that they constantly say. They get, there was a lovely bus driver in Guildford doing his job, 9 o'clock on a Saturday night, 2 guys come in and beat the living daylights out of him. I'm like, that is horrendous. This poor guy is just doing his job. They get constant abuse. And as well as, all the time pressures, these are all things that are contributing, sorry, I'm chatting too much, aren't I? Contributing to their poor mental health. So as an industry, do you think it's changed in the past 30 years with regards to driver well-being? Not really. Yeah, this is what they tell me. They say, nothing has changed. But even from being in today, I feel quite inspired because there's actually, you guys, I'm like, let's get you guys, but I'm arranging these guys to come into the training centre now, Beverly, because I think that would be great. We've got break over here. There is things in place, but we just need to get this information to our drivers. Things do need to change. We need that support like we've got in construction. I wanted to implement mental health workplace policies because drivers, if you've got these mental health workplace policies in place, they're going to feel supported if they're struggling with their mental health. They're like, right, I know that I can go to Chris and I can say, look, I'm really struggling. He's going to put a plan together and he's going to do a phased return. He's going to help me come back to work. So we need to offer that support. Having transport managers do mental health training so then they have the tools to talk to their drivers and give them the space to talk, because I know that drivers talk. But they just need that chance to share how they're feeling. And we need to raise the profile 100%. So obviously I would love a big advertising campaign, saying how amazing our drivers are. I would like to say, when your hazard perception, what it's like to be a HGV driver. I've sat in a bus and I didn't realise if you park behind that bus, they cannot see anything, can they? But I'm just a normal driver. I don't do your job, but I think these are the things in my ideal world I would like to change, and there's some really influential people. If any of you guys think that we can make a change and implement any of these things, I would love to have a chat. And let's reduce that stigma in the workplace. I've got a few minutes. So I went to one company and the drivers had a lovely staff room. They got a new transport managers. They took their drivers out. They put them downstairs in a cold room. They took all of their privileges away. And then I went to another place. They had EAP. They employed a lot of ex-military, so they had mental health first aiders. Their transport managers genuinely cared about their workers and were asking them, oh, how's your family? So they offered reward schemes. Those workers at this excavation company felt so valued. They had retention. All those drivers had been there for years. The other company, where they'd removed all the privileges, they'd put them down into the car park, they hated their jobs. They hated each other, and they hated the manager. If you support your workers, you give them the respect, you implement some of these things, it will help create a safer working environment and help make your drivers feel a lot more supported and give them the respect that they actually deserve. Right, I think I'm going to stop now because my mouth's really dry. Thank you.